Hello class, hello to all. So today in this class I would be taking a topic from microbiology, Clostridium. Clostridium group of bacteria. Clostridium group of bacteria has three kinds of bacteria. But in this class I would be taking one from them, that is Clostridium tetani. Clostridium is a group of bacteria which are gram-positive and aerobic spore-forming bacilli. The three types in this group are Clostridium perfringens, which causes gas gangrene, Clostridium tetani, which causes tetanus, and Clostridium botulinum, which causes botulism. Amongst these, the topic for today's class is Clostridium tetani. So we'll go into its details now. So Clostridium tetani is a causative organism of tetanus. It is responsible for causing tetanus. This bacteria is found widely distributed in soil and in the intestine of human beings and animals. Going into its morphology, this bacteria is gram-positive, slender, 4 to 8 microns into 0.5 microns, but there may be a considerable variation in length. This is not the fixed length, there is variation in the lengths. Then these bacteria are spore-bearing, non-capsulated, motile, having peritrichate flagella. Peritrichate flagella are tiny flagellas, numerous tiny flagellas which help these bacteria to be motile. Then another important thing about this bacteria are that they are anaerobic bacilli. These bacteria occur singly also and also occasionally are found in chains. The spores of these bacteria are spherical, terminal. Terminal means at one end of the bacteria and are bulging, which gives this bacteria a typical drumstick appearance. I'll just show you the picture for it. Then the young spores of this bacteria may be oval rather than being spherical. Okay, and the motility by peritrichate flagella, which I told you, it's more prominently found in the young spores of this bacteria. Let's see the picture. This picture shows very clearly the morphology. See, it is slender. It has a bulging at one end. See, I can show you. See this. This is the bulging at one end, giving it a drumstick appearance. Then these are the young spores. They may be oval rather than being spherical. Okay, so these are the young spores. This picture also shows you the staining of this bacteria. Then next, if we talk about the cultural characteristics, these are obligate anaerobes. It means that they grow in the absence of oxygen. They require a temperature of 37 degrees Celsius and a pH of 7.4. This very well matches to our normal physiological parameters. So then this bacteria grows on ordinary media. Blood and serum improves its growth. Ordinary media is used for culturing it, and blood and serum can improve its growth. The growth which comes after culturing these, it swarms over the surface of agar. It means that it is, distributed. It is, floating. It is present over the surface of the agar, especially if the medium is moist. It's not clustered, but it's spread over the surface of agar. The selective media used for the culture of this bacteria is Robertson's cooked meat broth. Blood agar can also be used to culture this bacteria, in which we find that there is alpha hemolysis, and then which is followed by beta hemolysis due to the production of hemolysin. Biochemical reaction it breaks up the protein very feebly, and no saccharolytic property. It means that it does not break up the sugars. It does not attack on any sugars. Resistance. These spores are very much resistant. They are not easily destroyed by any of the chemicals. They are not easily destroyed. The only method of destroying them is by autoclaving, which has a very high temperature. Autoclaving to destroy them. Okay. Next, this bacteria produces toxins. Tetinolysin is the first toxin, which is also called hemolysin because it causes the lysis of erythrocytes. This toxin is not relevant in tetanus pathogenesis. Then the second toxin this bacteria produces is tetanospasmin, which is a neurotoxic oxygen stable toxin, and it is neutralized by antitoxin. This is the major toxin which is responsible for causing tetanus. There is a third toxin called the non-spasmogenic one. It is found peripherally. It is a peripherally active neurotoxin. It is found, but its role in the pathogenesis of tetanus is not known. The major toxin responsible in tetanus is the tetanospasmin only. The pathogenicity. Tetanus results from the infection of a wound or raw surface with the tetanus bacilli or from the parenteral infection of contaminated substances. So, how does it result? It results if an open wound comes in contact with this bacteria or from contaminated surfaces. Okay. Then Clostridium tetani has a very little invasive power. If the clothes and the things are washed, they can be washed. They do not invade very much easily. They are not very invasive. But yes, if they invade, then the results are really very bad. So this flowchart shows the pathogenesis of this bacilli. In favorable conditions, if the conditions are favorable, means if it's an anaerobic condition like in the wounds, okay, in favorable conditions, the spore implanted in a wound germinates and multiplies. The spores which have come in contact with the wound, they multiply and grow. Okay. Then after this, when they are grown enough, they have multiplied enough, they produce a toxin locally, which is absorbed by the motor nerve endings and transported to the central nervous system. It attacks the central nervous system along the axis cylinders of the peripheral nerves. For this, you must know the structure of the nerves. Okay. So this bacteria travels through that and reaches the CNS, the central nervous system. after being absorbed at the motor nerve endings. Okay, then this toxin is fixed, very, very dearly fixed, avidly fixed by the gangliosides of the gray matter of the nervous tissue. It gets fixed. Okay, then the toxin blocks the synaptic inhibition in the spinal cord. This is the main reason for spasm of the muscles, that is inhibition. This toxin blocks synaptic inhibition in the spinal cord, presumably at the inhibitory terminals that use glycine as a neurotransmitter. It blocks the synaptic inhibition. Now, when this is blocked, the abolition of spinal inhibition causes uncontrolled spread of impulses initiated anywhere in the CNS. There is initiation of the impulses, but these cannot be inhibited. When they cannot be inhibited, the muscle cannot relax. And if it cannot relax, then it would remain in a contracted state, in a painfully contracted state. Okay, this is visible clinically in a patient of tetanus, which I'll just explain you after this. So this abolition of inhibition, abolition of spinal inhibition causes uncontrolled spread of impulses initiated anywhere in the CNS, and which finally results in the muscle rigidity and spasms due to the simultaneous contractions in the absence of reciprocal inhibition. That is, the muscles are not relaxing. The impulses are coming for the contraction, but they cannot relax. So they remain in a contracted state. Okay. This picture shows you the mechanism of action of the tetanus toxin. So the muscles remain in a contracted state and they cannot relax. Okay. Then this is the pathophysiology for tetanus. The pathogenicity, the mechanism of action of tetanus. Now we'll discuss this disease in brief. Tetanus, which is characterized by tonic muscular spasms, usually commencing at the site of infection and in all but the mildest cases becoming generalized, involving the whole of the somatic muscular system. So, in this disease, there is tonic muscular spasms. They commence at the site where there has been an infection, but later on they become generalized. The spasms commence from the site of infection, but later on they become generalized. They involve the whole body. Disease follows injury, which may be too trivial to be noticed, which may be too small. It is not necessary that tetanus would occur due to a bigger wound. It can result even from a very trivial one also. Okay, this illness can start from puncture wounds. This is to be remembered. Puncture wounds. It's more common to occur from puncture wounds. Surgical operations can the open surgery, the surgical operations when the tissues are open, and if the instruments used are not sterilized well, so tetanus can be caused from there. Local suppurations such as otitis media. Tetanus caused due to this is known as otogenic tetanus. Any kind of open wounds, any kind of open suppuration, local suppurations can cause tetanus. if the bacteria attacks on that wound. Unsterile injections. The use of unsterile injections can be a cause. Then unhygienic practices such as the application of cow dung on umbilical stump. This is common in the rural areas. Or rituals such as ear boring or circumcision. Okay. Then tetanus is an important complication of septic abortion. Please remember this as an important thing. Clinical presentation of tetanus. How would you see a patient? How the patient would look like? So clinically, tetanus is characterized by muscular rigidity, which persists throughout the illness, punctuated by painful paroxysmal spasms of the voluntary muscles, especially the masseters, causing trismus or lockjaw. This is the earliest manifestation. The second is the facial muscles. It affects the facial muscles, causing rhesus sardonicus. Then it affects the muscles of the back and the neck, causing opisthotonus. And then those of the lower limbs and abdomen. So clinically we can see there is rigidity of the muscles which is punctuated means after an interval comes and keeps coming and going, punctuated by painful paroxysmal spasms of the voluntary muscles, affecting the muscles of the face, the muscles of the back and neck, then the muscles of the lower limbs and abdomen. Death in these cases occurs which is due to spasm of the respiratory and laryngeal muscles. Death occurs if there is spasm in the respiratory and the laryngeal muscles, since voluntary muscles are being affected. Okay. So if there is spasm in the laryngeal and respiratory muscles, death can occur due to this. Now see this picture. It very well shows you the trismus or the lockjaw and the rhesus sardonicus in tetanus. See the expression. See the contraction of the muscles of the face. Okay. Spasm of the jaw, facial and neck muscles, which is called trismus or the lockjaw, and the rhesus sardonicus. And dysphagia are often early symptoms after variable incubation period. This is due to the muscle spasms. Then complete tetanic spasm in advanced disease. Patient is rigid in moderate opisthotonus with arms extended. Abdomen is board-like and respiratory arrest may occur, all due to the spasms, the contracted muscles. Opisthotonus in tetanus. This is the tetanus. Okay. The incubation period is commonly 6 to 12 days, but it varies from 2 days to several weeks also, but commonly it is 6 to 12 days. Now this incubation period is influenced by site and nature of the wound. That what is the site which is the site of the wound, the nature of the wound, is it big or small, what type of wound it is, then the dose and toxigenicity, how much contamination has occurred, the dose and toxigenicity of the contaminating organism, and of course the immune status of patient. The incubation period varies by that also. Prognosis is very grave if the incubation period is short. Interval between the first symptom, which is usually trismus as I've told you, and the onset of spasm also determines prognosis, that how the disease has progressed from the first symptom to the last one. Okay, this also determines the prognosis. Mortality rate in cases of tetanus is very, very high, 40 to 80%. Earlier it was 80%. Gradually, with advancements and hygienic practices, it has decreased, but still, as compared to the other diseases, it is a very high mortality rate. Okay, then lab diagnosis. There are no laboratory findings characteristic of tetanus. Tetanus can only be diagnosed based on the clinical symptoms and the history. Diagnosis is clinical and does not depend on bacteriological confirmation. Clostridium tetani, this is because Clostridium tetani is recovered from wound only in 30% of cases and may even be isolated in patients who do not have tetanus. So this is, we cannot take it as a diagnostic criteria. Okay, so but there is demonstration of Clostridium tetani by microscopy, culture, or by inoculation. These are done, but then there are no laboratory findings characteristic for tetanus. Okay, then cooked meat tubes are incubated at 37 degrees Celsius and subcultured to 1/2 of blood agar for 4 days, after which swarming prophylaxis. Yes, it's very common. Tetanus and our tetanus is an illness which is very common from the point of view of prophylaxis. Surgical attention, which involves removal of foreign bodies, necrotic tissue, and blood cells to avoid anaerobic environment. So there is removal surgically. If any foreign body is lodging there, it has to be removed surgically. Necrotic tissues are removed along and blood cells so as to prevent forming an anaerobic environment. Medicines in allopathic, they use their own antibiotics, but homeopathic prophylaxis has its own very good importance, but has to be followed as per the guidelines given by our master Hahnemann in Organon of Medicine, so it can be done. Immunization. Immunization can be passive or active. Little detail about this. How a passive immunization is done. It's done by injection of tetanus antitoxin ATS, anti-tetanus serum. Prior sensitization leads to hypersensitivity reactions, which may range from mild local reactions to serum sickness and even fatal anaphylaxis. Then active immunization is done by formal toxoid, plain toxoid or absorbed toxoid. Third, tetanus toxoid is given along with diphtheria toxoid and produces vaccine as triple vaccine. You must be knowing about this DPT, must have heard about it, right? So 3 doses are given intramuscularly with an interval of 4 to 6 weeks, and then a booster dose is given after 10 years. Treatment of the patients of tetanus. Tetanus patients are isolated in special units in the hospitals to protect them from noise and light, which may provoke convulsions. The spasm, the convulsions which are caused in this illness can be provoked by slightest of noise and light, slightest of stimulus like light and noise. That's why these patients are kept in special units and isolated wards in special units in the hospitals. Then human TIG, anti-tetanus immunoglobulin, diluted, may be given by slow IV infusion. Then another thing followed in allopathy is they use the antibacterial therapy, but for us appropriate homeopathic medicine must be administered immediately as soon as possible. Okay, so this slide shows you briefly what I have talked about in today's class. The first picture shows the cause, unhygienic surfaces which can come in contact, and it shows that this bacteria requires an anaerobic environment to grow. Then this picture shows the characteristic drumstick appearance of the bacilli. This picture is showing the mechanism of tetanus toxin. Okay, and the last two pictures show the characteristic, the clinical presentation of tetanus. Okay, so I hope you have got a brief idea, a good idea about this topic. Please read it from your microbiology books. Okay, that's all for today's class. Thank you so much.